The Roswell crash not only happened in 1947, the United States appropriated such sophisticated alien technology that arguably it became the single most important event in history and also the biggest cover-up. Within a few months, the official Air Force and CIA were created to secure the situation. As a Pentagon official author, Phillip Corso's credentials are as impressive as the story's details. Senators, generals, a Secretary of Defense, a Pope, and a President were all among the Colonel's contacts, and none of them came forward to challenge his claims in his New York Times bestseller, The Day After Roswell, the only book about UFOs ever to make the New York Times bestseller list. Hear about the entire story, updates, and an extension of relevant topics in Murray. Update and expansion, The Day After Roswell, by Quick Savant. Quick Savant summary. The Day After Roswell by Phillip Corso includes 30 images generated by AI not found in the original book. An added appendix of biographies includes authors Phillip Corso and William J. Berners, and scientist Wilbert Smith, J. Robert Oppenheimer, Werner von Braun, Hermann Oberth, Robert Irving Sarbocker, John von Neumann, as well as President Dwight D. Eisenhower and General Arthur Gilbert Trudeau. Sit back, relax, and listen to your audio sample. Links to purchase are in the description.
Phillip Corso matured into a decorated and trustworthy military man. He advanced to be one of the top intelligence officers in the Army in research and design of foreign technology at the Pentagon. This broad classification included techno-artifacts from UFOs. He boasts 19 medals in 21 years of service in the Army. According to publisher Simon & Schuster, a person of exceptional prominence in the National Archives in St. Louis, Missouri, Corso served 4 years on President Eisenhower's National Security Council. 2. Colonel Corso felt obligated in his 80s to pass on to his children, grandchildren, and the rest of the world some of the details of his most unusual, planetary significant, and historic career. It took him 5 years of writing to finish his book. He said in his memoirs that he hoped his book would help prepare humanity for any hostile alien presence. Because of the secrecy insisted upon by the military for over 7 decades regarding UFOs, Colonel Corso, in a videotaped interview on February 1, 2008, said that if he did not share it, the story would likely die with him. 3. In the same video, his son said his father shared only about 10% of what he knew in his best-selling book, The Day After Roswell. The rest remained buried under a top-secret classification. Corso explains what the government would not on that dark desert night on July 3, 1947, during a fierce lightning storm near Roswell, New Mexico. Either from the lightning or the effects of a multitude of radar beams tracking it, or both, an alien spacecraft crashed, spewed out at least 4 aliens, at least one of them alive, and all of whom had been genetically engineered for space travel. The most important single event in human history. Corso's The Day After Roswell lies at the heart of the modern history of the alien presence on Earth. The history of UFOs and aliens becomes the dominant story of our planet, affecting all of politics, social and intellectual development and economies. In a lightning storm in the middle of the night, the crash near the remote town of Roswell, New Mexico, stands as arguably the most important single event in human history. The technology derived from the crashed spaceship and the nature of the aliens as chip-implanted clones would lead to a worldwide tech revolution. The Cold War with the Soviets would lead to the Strategic Defense Initiative, which would force the Soviet Union to not only stand down, but to disintegrate. The Roswell crash earned global publicity for the topic of aliens, and now, with the new evidence of UAP, it would answer one of humankind's ultimate questions: we are not alone in the universe. The amazing craft was comprised of such advanced materials that the vast majority of it remained intact. One large crack in it allowed the aliens to either exit on their own or be pulled out. Corso's story becomes remarkable, enlightening and unique, and quickly. He first describes what happened at Roswell in July of 1947. Next, he He focuses on his role in the commercial development of technology gleaned from the ship and the aliens themselves, all against a backdrop of secrecy to protect the technology from the Soviets. Communists had gained a solid foothold in the CIA after World War II. Corso's book morphs into an insider's view of United States history, from World War II through the 1980s. What he reveals is astonishingly relevant for today's world and our survival as a free nation. Corso shows the reader how the government works, and how we fought a form of war against aliens. The way the military handled the commercialization and full use of the earth-changing technology to not draw attention to its origins, while at the same time censoring, bribing and intimidating witnesses, denying the existence of UFOs altogether, and propagating disinformation is not pretty, and was a bit sloppy. Nevertheless, it proved to be the biggest cover-up in the history of the United States. Corso, respected and well-connected in the army, stood right in the middle of it all, mouth shut, ears wide open, quietly doing his job despite tales from the CIA. A series of unusual and unlikely circumstances just happened to place Corso in charge of the night watch on Fort Riley, Kansas. He could go wherever he deemed fit as he checked each station. Corso happened to have this assignment just a few days after the Roswell crash. The dead aliens were en route across the country by truck. The truck stopped at Fort Riley. As Corso made his security rounds, one of his bowling buddies had been on watch over the alien cargo, and motioned for Corso to take a quick look inside some packing crates in an off-limits facility. What Corso saw created an unforgettable, unpleasant memory for life. It was a very small and very dead alien with an oversized head and large eyes. Corso said nothing and told no one, but 14 years later, he found himself entrusted with a file cabinet full of documents and materials about Roswell from the Chief of Research and Design, Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau IV. Corso had worked directly with President Eisenhower as a National Security Council member, handing him special intelligence reports and waiting for his reply. When Eisenhower retired, he passed Corso on to General Trudeau. Trudeau became Corso's next boss in Army intelligence. Later, Corso would view the results of the autopsies on the aliens. When he retired, Trudeau served as president of Gulf Labs for the Gulf Oil Corporation until 1968 in Pittsburgh. Trudeau's next position would be a special advisor to the chairman of Rockwell International. Trudeau became a legend in the Korean War for trading his helmet for one of a lower rank so he could lead a charge under heavy fire up Pork Chop Hill to bring some of his men back to safety. Corso's job: get the ball rolling for gleaning commercial uses of the remaining alien technology, and get it into the hands of the right contractors, but secretly. The Air Force formed immediately after Roswell had grabbed the craft. Bell Labs procured some of the futuristic electronics. On July 27, 1947, the National Security Act created the U.S. Air Force and CIA as independent agencies. Corso consulted with several top German scientists who had decided to work with the United States after the war. Corso ultimately gives credit to the Roswell craft, from transistors to integrated circuit chips, from chips to smaller and faster computers, from computers to the Internet. Kevlar lasers, the stealth bomber, fiber optics, night vision goggles and particle beam weapons also arose from what the craft had to offer. In other words, the long-term development of the technology from the craft led to the electronics, computer and Silicon Valley revolutions, revolutionary aircraft, facilitated space travel and sophisticated weaponry. Corso reveals why the military immediately labeled the alien crafts as a threat. The aliens spent significant time buzzing top-secret military installations, including those harboring nuclear weapons, for reconnaissance. They had no hesitation in extracting a uterus or other organ from more than a few unfortunate cows, apparently with laser scalpels, like the one found on the ship, or abducting humans for testing and experimentation. Kidnapping people against their will, and running medical tests and experiments which terrorize them, are not behaviors of friendly, benevolent aliens. Our astronauts and spacecraft found themselves painted with bullseyes. The aliens jammed critical communications and scared the hell out of our astronauts with close flybys. They didn't want us on the moon at all. Corso not only claims that they forced us to end the Apollo program, but that they had already built a base on the moon. Our government feared they evaluated us for a takeover. They didn't share their technology with us. We had to take some of it from them. We were forced to use it against them, Corso claims, for our survival. We used accelerated particle beam weapons, lasers, and stealth aircraft forms to hold them at bay. The suspected genetic engineering of the alien pilots and spies relates to my summary, update and expansion book on Francis Crick's life itself. 5. Crick claimed that earthly DNA arose from elsewhere, that it had been genetically engineered by advanced aliens billions of years ago. Corso's claims suggest that the Roswell aliens demonstrated a high level of expertise in genetic engineering. One theory: ancient aliens seeded planets for life with engineered DNA for harvesting later as infrastructure for colonies, perhaps with hybridization with any local intelligent species. Not a bad Darwinian strategy for spreading one's genes and culture across the universe. Of course, we don't know if the Roswell craft inhabitants represented descendants, or engineered projects, of the same aliens suspected of seeding life on Earth. If they were, we would have a much better understanding of our beginnings and possible futures. One thing that we would like to know: were the aliens based on some form of DNA? Corso would wait for him to pass away before publishing out of his respect for Trudeau and Trudeau's family. Corso's The Day After Roswell lies at the heart of the modern history of the alien presence on Earth. The history of UFOs and aliens becomes the dominant story of our planet, affecting all of politics, social and intellectual development and economies. In a lightning storm in the middle of the night, the crash at the remote town of Roswell, New Mexico, stands as arguably the most important single event in human history. The technology derived from the crashed spaceship and the nature of the aliens as clones, penetrated by that technology, would lead to a worldwide tech revolution. The Cold War with the Soviets would lead to the Strategic Defense Initiative, which would help catalyze the end of the Soviet Union. The Roswell crash earned global publicity for the topic of aliens, and now, with the new evidence of UAP, it would answer one of humankind's ultimate questions: we are not alone in the universe. Caption: Foreword to The Day After Roswell by Senator Strom Thurmond. Senator Thurmond begins by first discussing the threat of communism during the 1950s and 1960s. Thurmond served as a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee and paid tribute to the anti-communist efforts of General Arthur Trudeau, Corso's intelligence boss in the Army. Senator Thurmond lamented the communist efforts to censor and immobilize those in the military who stood against them in our government. The senator met Phillip Corso, who shared the same sentiment and was recommended by 2 of the senator's staff members. Corso served in the Korean War and World War II. Colonel Corso showed that he was well informed about exactly which high-ranking officials were behind the censorship. The senator took on Corso as a dedicated and trusted investigative aide. Senator Thurmond, at the end of his foreword, praises Corso's abilities and character. Introduction by Phillip Corso. Colonel Corso served as an evaluator and researcher for the Army, including foreign weapons systems. He perused reports on technology and met with a variety of engineers. He reported to the head of Army Intelligence, Research and Design, Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau, who oversaw the work of over 3,000 enlisted personnel. Under the guise of routine work, Corso led a double and surprising life, reviewing highly classified information and acting upon it as directed by Trudeau. He found himself pursued by the CIA and KGB, and had to know the games of spies to do his job. Corso knew of the KGB's penetration of the CIA and other government departments, greatly influencing policymaking. Because of his experience, dedication to the military and the United States, history with President Eisenhower, and intelligence expertise, Lieutenant General Trudeau entrusted Corso with the remaining Roswell artifacts and documents in 1961. Roswell quickly had morphed into the Army's most important secret after the crash in 1947. Corso reported to Trudeau, and not Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the Army's Director of Central Intelligence, who would become the first director of the CIA. As part of his job, Corso read the reports on Roswell from a variety of military sources. The bottom line, the crash of an alien craft at Roswell with aliens present, stood on record as an indisputable reality. Lieutenant General Trudeau laid out Corso's assignment: utilize the Army's Weapons Research and Development Program to sift through the remaining technology found in the craft and from the nature of the aliens, and hand it over to the appropriate long-standing and trusted private contractors for development, including for military applications. Adding the sacred technology to ongoing contracts helped mask what was going on, instead of creating new ones. Not only did the military label the aliens as an existential threat to humanity, but it also feared the aliens had interfered in World War II. Corso claims the military and the United States government it represented considered themselves at war with Soviet communists and aliens. The processing of alien technology led to the alien defeat, albeit likely a temporary one, by military efforts presumed to be in concert with the Russians, which fostered the end of the Cold War. Corso credits a handful of officers in military intelligence for altering the course of history for humanity. He stood proud to be among them, just a little man from a little town in Pennsylvania, who ended up with one of the biggest jobs in the world.